Hello and welcome back to Bursting into the Scene, episode number 4, and today we're going to be decoding the football business model. So first of all, I just want to say a massive thank you to every single person that continues to like and share and to listen as well. Your support is not going unnoticed, guys. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying these podcasts at the moment, and I'm glad to see that you guys are doing so as well. And there's a few more that are coming up, that are going to really spice things up a little bit. So I'm sure that you guys are going to get a lot of value out of those episodes as well. It's really, really important. I think that these lessons are being learned, number one. But number two, getting to know a little bit more about me, a little bit more about my journey, and things that I do and how I just operate in the football business space. Today, that's what we're going to be doing a little bit more. There's a lot of myths, and do you know what, with the football business industry, it's one of those things that is a bit unknown. Even when obviously I first started learning about it, it's an unknown. You're like, this is something that I know because I only see it on the outside, but in reality, I'm not too sure. You know what you get on Twitter or something, where there's people who just think that they know everything. They hear one thing, or in the know, and now I know everything. So when they don't know about it, it's quite funny to see everyone just kind of latch onto one thing, and then all of a sudden it blows up, and you're like, oh my God, like come on, you've really got to wake up and smell the coffee a little bit. But I think what's important to know and understand is that football business and sport business in general is not too difficult. It's not too complex and not too different to that other business, but it has got some differentiating factors. And one thing that I think is a massive misconception that I'm going to talk about that is quite fascinating to begin with is actually how businesses operate in football, because I think it's interesting comparing football clubs and football organisations. If we start, because they're two different things, football organisations, which is what I kind of call them. Yes, clubs are organisations, but for the purpose of this, example, organisations is not a club, and football clubs are football clubs, right? Football organisations are just businesses that are in sport, like what I'm running at the moment, or what some of my colleagues and people that I know are running. They run businesses that are in the football industry, and they have nothing to do with on-pitch performance. They're more around, maybe it's merchandise. So you've got things like Pro Direct or classic football shirts, for example. These guys are football businesses. They operate at, trying to make money, trying to generate revenue, and continuing to put back into their marketing, their promotions, all these different things. They're not operating like football clubs. Football clubs like Manchester United, maybe not Manchester City is a bad example, other than like Newcastle, Chelsea. These clubs operate on a completely different level. It's really, really crazy. 85% of clubs in the 2022-2023 season from the top 4 divisions, that's English League, Championship, League 1, League 2, 85% of those clubs did not operate at a profit. And that's good. That's kind of what is considered good and a good factor of success in the football business model, right? Which is crazy. Just let that sink in. Only 15% of those clubs made money. And I guarantee you those 15%, the fans of those clubs must have been fuming because they were like, why are we not spending money? Like, we're probably underspending and not trying to get to promotion. But that is kind of the way that the business model works in football. And it's quite interesting because a lot of people think, and this is the misconception number one, is that football clubs make a lot of money. Someone also mentioned this when I put it out on a post in LinkedIn. They said that one of the biggest misconceptions is that football clubs make a lot of money, and he works in clubs. It's crazy, guys. The amount of money that these guys lose, these clubs lose, and are happy to operate at is ridiculous. There's a few factors and a few reasons as to why that's the case. The biggest one really is competitive factor. So obviously, football clubs want to compete, they want to win, and to win they've got to attract the best players, the best staff, and so therefore wages comes into a factor. And as you see, obviously the numbers that are being reported are ridiculous. Wages are pretty much typically the number one cost for every single football club across all levels. It's not just professional, but also probably not like semi-pro. It's wages. Unless they're not paid, then that's when it gets a little bit different, but for the most part, it is wages that are the highest cost. And this is fine, by the way. This is an accepted method of success, is wages, wages, wages. And, Manchester United, for example, they're probably the best example case of overspending on wages that have been demonstrated in the last 5 to 10 years in football. They have operated at such an expense to paying players so much money, and sometimes players that don't really justify that level of money. But in return, they expect players to play much better. They expect players to be happier because they're on so much more money. But I think it's had a reverse effect where players have probably thought, because they're getting a lot of money and because it's quite an easy culture where you can go to a football club like Manchester United and get paid a lot of money, then you can just chill with that, right? And you can get paid. So it's something that is so detrimental to the football club itself because they're just not making any money. And they're spending so much money on wages as well that it's ridiculous. Obviously, when you look lower down, there is the case of gambling pretty much for promotion to whatever league it is. And so you have to take a massive risk. Derby County took that risk in 2019 where they basically overspent on wages and better players than maybe their finances could attract at a shot of getting into the Premier League. And if they had got to the Premier League, Derby County would have been probably okay, because obviously they would have got the parachute payments, they would have been paid, so they would have been fine, and there wouldn't have been an issue. But can you imagine a business gambling over 1 year by overspending well beyond their means to try and get back a bit of revenue at the end of that year, and going beyond and going bust to try and make that happen, knowing that they could gamble that future? Because let's not forget, in football, it's a results-based business, but it's also meritocratic. So just because you spend all that money, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get there. And Derby County found that out the hard way. In business, you can maybe control it a little bit more. I know there's things like the market and the industry and trends, but in reality, you still have that power to control your own business and control your own destiny. Whereas in football, the owners can't do that. It's about the players, it's about the 11 people every single week and the coaching staff and the manager that go out onto the pitch and then try to deliver that. So it's just such an example that obviously what happened to them is that they didn't get promoted. They lost, I think, the playoff final to Aston Villa. And then because they'd spent all that money on wages, they were at such a loss, they had to get rid of all those players, or else they wouldn't have been able to go day-to-day trading, and they went bust, basically. And it was a disaster. But those fans, you could say, will look back on that year and think, we had a great year, we had a good time, and we understood the risk that was taken. Now, in hindsight, it was a really bad idea. Obviously, they lost a lot of money, and it's really, really bad business. But if it had paid off and they got to the Premier League, people would be saying it was a masterstroke and a genius business move to gamble pretty much the entire future of the club on getting promoted. And that's not just Derby County. There are so many examples in football of clubs that do pretty much go down this model of let's gamble everything, let's go for it, and then what happens is that they lose out and really, really falter. So it's pretty mental, and it's such a misconception that people are almost surprised when clubs go into liquidation or they have to start selling assets or making people redundant, but that is literally just a result of the game. Unfortunately, the football business sector, especially at lower level, is really, really unstable, because you just don't know. You just don't know if your club this year is thinking, we're going to push for promotion, let's gamble so much, let's invest in bigger players. And don't forget, players are assets. So if they pay off and they do well, you can either sell them for more money, or hopefully they're going to push you up the table, make you more money. So that's why there's an asset, connotation. You think there's stock that a business might have, assets come into it as players. So you've got to hope that that return of investment works either on the pitch, or you can get rid of them and not lose as much money, or even make a profit on that player compared to when you brought them in. So it's such a big risk, and it's mental really, because then clubs are just gambling. I mean, it's just high stakes betting, I'll be honest with you. When you really consider it, it's not really business, it's just betting, because you're betting on your own future to get there. And by spending all of this money, you're going to make it compared to other clubs, when in reality that's not really the case. So I think it's something that's really, really interesting to consider. And ultimately speaking, it's something that I thought as well. I was like, why are football clubs not spending more money? Because they make so much, especially as someone who, let's say, followed Manchester United. Then I'm watching them and going, surely you can just splash out another 100 million on this player or 100 million on this player and it should be fine, right? But once you see it and once you're in the industry, it's like, no, absolutely not. These clubs are on a tightrope all the time, gambling their way, gambling their days away, gambling tomorrow to try and make today better. And that is just normal practice, normal business practice. And now that's why you're also seeing a bit of a cut back. And there are a lot of experts that have spoken about the independent regulator, the FFP laws. I'm not going to get into that, but that is just to protect the business of clubs. Because, trading has pretty much gone to shambles in football, to be honest with you. Now it's just crazy. And these organisations. I think now actually is a bit different because of the rules. But if you think 2-3 years ago, it's mad. And that's why things like COVID happened. And, obviously it impacted a lot of businesses. But lower down from the Premier League, especially, it really hurt a lot of football clubs because they don't get people in, and they gambled so much that they just ended up losing out so much money. So it was ridiculous. And it's ridiculous, the way that these clubs can operate and gamble their finances. But that's the game. That is the game. And that is misconception number one. Clubs make a lot of money. They do, but they also operate at more of a loss. The biggest misconception number two comes around player transfers. So some people, and myself included, used to think that if a player was bought for a club, let's say a big player, the example I always like to use is Paul Pogba to Manchester United. I feel like I've used that example quite a few times, especially in an episode coming up. That one comes up again. And when we signed him, a lot of people said, oh, it's going to make the money back because the shirt sale fees that we get from signing Pogba and sell them to Pogba are going to go back into the club and make the money back instantaneously. Think Messi to PSG? Nah. No. Mbappe to Real Madrid right now? Probably not. It doesn't happen. The way that it pretty much works, and I used to think this for a long time, and I don't think people have really spoken about it, maybe because it's a myth that the organisations like to keep under the wraps because they know that, okay, it can kind of justify our earnings are a little bit, is that in reality, football clubs probably make between 7.5% and 15% of shirt sale fees back. That goes to them. The way that it pretty much works is that these, kit manufacturers, Nike, Adidas, Puma, all these guys, they sign long-term agreements and licensing agreements with football clubs. So that's why you'll see when at the beginning of a contract, let's say, they'll sign a 10-year deal worth about 800 million. Manchester United did it with Adidas. It was like 750 million. That is pretty much them paying up front to get the earnings they're going to get back. And then from every single shirt sale, pretty much the majority and the bulk of that earning goes straight back to the kit manufacturer. And the club won't get, I think the most is Liverpool, who have got 20% of their deal with Nike. So that's actually quite high in comparison to others. But other than that, the rest of the earnings pretty much go back to the kit manufacturer straight away. I mean, they don't really make much, to be honest with you. I think it's something that I'm just trying to have a look at my numbers here. It's not really a common practice that clubs will make earning back from shirt sales, which is why they're not bothered. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other, like when I come back to players being assets, of course, they're going to get things like marketing in a certain country or, social media following of that player as well. Yeah, but when it comes to the kit agreements, it doesn't really happen. Most of the clubs, when it comes to distribute and the costs, they will just basically hold the store so the manufacturers can get space to put their kits in or whatever. But then it doesn't really amount to much. It just ends up being a small proportion of what they're earning. So to them, it doesn't really matter. But obviously to the fans, on Twitter, I've seen so many debates where people are like, oh yeah, we've paid 100 million for Anthony, but all the shirt sales are going to come back and we're going to make that money back straight away. Or PSG just signed Messi. Okay, I guess it was a free transfer, but his wages were ridiculous, to be honest with you. Oh yeah, we signed Mbappe, we signed all these players, and we're going to get all this much money back. It's like, no, hold on a minute. No, you're not. Like, shut up. You don't really know what you're talking about. But anyways, that's kind of a big misconception. So next time your club signs a football player for a lot of money, next time Man United fork out 100 million for the next centre-half or something like that, who's okay, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to make it all back money from shirt sale revenues, you're not. Maybe even Ronaldo, like the best player probably in terms of marketing ever. Maybe we might have made back some money from him, Manchester United, but I highly doubt it because you think Nike would have 100% gone. It was an Adidas deal, wasn't it? They would have 100% gone. Nah, bro, Ronaldo signing. We want the shirt sale numbers. You get out, Manchester United. You can have 10% of that. So even something like that, I got a Ronaldo shirt. I don't know where it's gone now. I think I've had it for ages. But I know, when he signed around Old Trafford, that was just everyone had a Ronaldo shirt. Pretty much everyone in Manchester for maybe a good year or two when he first signed had a Ronaldo shirt. I reckon even Man City fans had a Ronaldo shirt. Don't even lie, you probably did, because you're like, oh, he's in Manchester, like, you know, I might as well just go and watch him. Oh, that was sick when Ronaldo was at Manchester United. The city was kind of booming at that time, really, because, you know, it's such a big thing to come back. But they probably didn't make that money back from shirt sales, believe it or not. So that is, you know, another thing that just people don't understand. But because it's so hidden and quite, not secretive, but there's such a grey line between what actually is and what actually isn't, because they're happy to have it that way. And when I say they, I mean, you know, people in business and football, and, you know, football clubs particularly. And it's not anything to be shady, it's just because they're like, well, it probably creates intrigue, so we can just let people guess what they think. And then if they guess wrong, it's fine, because they don't really know what we're doing. And if they guess right, it's also fine, because they know what we're doing, but we're going to do it anyways. So it doesn't really matter in that circumstance. Other quick ones here that we've got down is that working in football is a quick pathway to riches. It's not. You've got to begin, you know, just like any other industry, any other business. You've got to build up and dedicate your set of skills and crafts. And once you get there, then you're going to access a lot of riches. Obviously, sport is one of these sectors that will probably never die out, because it's about a passion thing. So you're always going to find business in sport. You're always going to find opportunities in sport, but you've got to take your time to build it up as well. We've got sports teams that made a lot of money. We've already spoken about that one. Sport management degrees aren't real or valuable. It's not true, because obviously you get an opportunity to learn your craft, to study it as well, so you have a better understanding of the overall landscape and picture of the sport management business. And whether that's in business, whether that's in coaching, whether that's in management or player care, whatever it is, it's a valuable thing to have. It's a valuable asset and knowledge skill to have that in your knowledge base. So that's really important. Sports betting, actually, that could be one for another day. One good thing about sports betting, I say one good thing, I know people love it and it's quite a difficult subject, is that it can help to identify match fixing patterns. So, you know, these organisations can bet and go through and see, actually, this is a problem. That's why you've seen players getting caught, because of betting. They know kind of the metrics and all the algorithms and stuff like that. These organisations that offer betting sites up, that basically means that they can catch players out, and it stops cheating. That's why you don't really see it much in the Premier League, I imagine. Well, you don't really see it anywhere, but, you know, I guess particularly here in England, where I'm from, and in other countries, you're going to get caught, and it's going to be quite a big one. So, you know, there's quite not a lot of leniency when it comes to that, but that is a good thing of betting. And ticket sales are the primary source of revenue, not if you're a Premier League club. That's the last one. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to bringing you more in episode number 5. Take care and goodbye.